Microphone check 1, 2. What up, what up? How's everybody doing? How's my mic sound? Please let me know in the chat. What's up, Amy Lynn? New member. Welcome. Perfect timing. We will be having a members meeting tomorrow. Supposed to do that already, Derek. What up? What's going on, everybody? So we should have a pretty interesting little live stream today. Shout out to Amy Lynn. Welcome. Vanessa, what's up? SP, good to see you. Good to see you, D, as always. Miss Vixen. What up, Sleuth? What up, Hazel? The Unsolved. I don't see the phone number to call in the pinned link above. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You can't vote. Nadia, hello. Probably a red pickup. There's someone who owns one. Yeah, I'm not sure. But we're gonna dive into all this information today. The Unsolved put out some really good stuff. Kind of made me think if that could be similar to the murder sheets source. You know, if Kegan's in prison running around, you know, telling stories whether they're true or not, you know, that could be a source of them too. Maybe it doesn't sound like it's the same source, because you think he would have made mention of it, but it could be something similar. The Unsolved says, I can attempt to answer as many questions as possible. Sure. I mean, you did a pretty good job. You did a three, what is it? A 3 video? You did 3 videos. Let me pull this up real quick. I took a screenshot. I just had a huge cup of iced coffee, so I'm a little bit fidgety. Bear with me. It just like hit me out of nowhere. I'm like, whoa. And I haven't eaten any breakfast. What the heck? Oh, there it is. Do you ever just delete stuff and you're like, when did that happen? It was like in my deleted folder. Okay. So the link to The Unsolved, the YouTube channel, is in the description. As you know, we've covered another item that The Unsolved put out. So he's doing good stuff here. Very interesting. As you can see here, I am subscribed. I do recommend the channel. So he put 3 videos out: Delphi exclusive, part 1, part 2, and part 3. Now, apparently, he came across, and if you want all the details, we're not going to get into too many details on the video on his stuff. If you want to go, I recommend checking that out and then coming back and watching this. This is going to be more of a follow-up and kind of trying to consider a timeline if that information is true. You know, we'll try to, because from what I see, the person who was locked up with Kegan Kline seems to be being honest about what Kegan told him. Now, we don't know if Kegan was being honest about what he said, but I don't think that's the point. So we'll kind of see if it's even possible, first and foremost. And with all the information that we know, can we either debunk it, give credence to it, or simply just maybe answer some other questions? Because one of the things that popped right out to me was the shoe. You know, if this story's true and Kegan's waiting in the vehicle, dad comes back and says, hey, like, I just messed up. Like I went crazy and I killed those girls. I need you to come with me and to help me hide them or put them somewhere where they're not going to be found so that we can get out of here. So we'll go over that timeline to see if it's even possible from what we know. There's been some good videos out there. We got a pretty good idea of how long it takes to get from the Freedom Bridge or even the CPS building all the way to the south end of the High Bridge. So we got a good idea how long it's going to take somebody, you know, give or take. So we're going to talk about that. But apparently, on the video that The Unsolved put out, he just stumbled across some comments. And basically, I guess we can go through those comments right now. Hey, what's up, Kelly? What's up, Derek? Vanessa, Miss Thang, Jimmy Hoffa, good to see you. Hazel. What's up, Carrie Ann? Rosie. Let me make that a little bigger in case you guys want to read ahead. What's up, Jessica? Moon Crystal, thank you. Marlo. What's up, Rob? Hey, what's good, Frank? Good to see you, buddy. All right, give me one moment. Looks like we might have somebody calling in right now. Hello. Is this The Unsolved?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty good. How are you doing?
I had a long night, to be honest with you. The last thing I ever expected was to be up until 6 o'clock in the morning making these videos and having a 3-hour conversation with somebody who stated that he spent a lot of time around Kegan Kline while he was in Miami County Jail.
Yeah, it's very interesting. What do you want to clear up, or how do you want this to come across? Because it's extremely interesting. First thing that popped in my head was the murder sheet and their source. Do you think it's something similar to that?
Well, I did notice that when he told me his story that the red Jeep thing matched. And one thing I want to caution about is anytime you're dealing with somebody who's been incarcerated, you want to be extremely careful to question everything that they tell you. But at the same time, the more and more I started talking to this individual, found out, what his real identity was, what he was in for, his background, and built a rapport with him after he was kind of initially shy talking to me. The more and more he seemed like he was really credible to me and really wasn't BSing me. And again, that's not for me to decide. That's just my personal opinion after speaking with him for 3 hours. And one of the reasons why I wanted, when I saw you were doing this, to come on your channel was to just one time with somebody here, just kind of go on the record, answer whatever questions I can answer. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of things I can't answer, but for whatever reason, this person decided to comment on one of my older videos yesterday. He's only been out of prison for a couple of days, and he stated that it was weighing on his conscience and that he wanted to talk to somebody about his experience. And for whatever reason, he chose me. He said he also posted some comments on Mind Shock's page, and they kind of clowned him when he was there doing that. And
Wow.
that nobody really believed him. And initially, I thought he was screwing around as well. But once he started giving me information and showing me these photographs and the drawings that he did and things like that, the more I started realizing, hey, this isn't just some BS. This is somebody who really knew this guy. And I apologize if you're giving feedback on your audio. I hear echo here, but if you're good, we're all good.
Yeah, you sound good to me. I don't know. It could be something different for the people that are viewing.
Okay.
Let me pull up some of these drawings here.
Sure. And again, I'll try to answer whatever questions you guys have.
Sure, I appreciate you for taking the time to give us a call, man. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. I just had to sleep in because I work a lot of evenings, so I just happen to have extra time here after I got up today because I was wiped out after last night. You should see the notes I had. I had just countless sheets of paper because he didn't want me audio recording. So I just started taking notes with permanent marker, and I just have a pile of sorting through and getting the videos out as quickly as I did. It was pretty hectic.
So, I mean, did he say whether or not he believed Kegan Kline, or did he give any impression?
Yes. He told me, again, he has his own theories, and I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But
Let's listen. I want to hear all of it. I mean, it's important to hear his, what his full perspective is on the matter, because I'm sure he has maybe even some details he's not going to even share with you.
And correct. And I'm paraphrasing, but what he essentially told me is that Kegan told him while they were incarcerated together that Kegan's dad allegedly accessed the Anthony Shots account and was having conversations of a quote, and this is his words, not mine, of a sexual nature with Abby and Libby, or one of them, either right before or the day of the crimes, that they both went out there to the Monon High Bridge that day, allegedly, and Tony met the girls while Kegan waited in the Jeep or in his vehicle, and at one point, after all this went down, Kegan went back to the Jeep, and basically, Tony went back to the Jeep, I apologize, and essentially recruited Kegan to come and help him clean up the scene or stage the scene. And it just, if that's true, it just blows my mind that they would do that in broad daylight.
Well, the first thing that pops out to me when I heard that, and what might give it some more legitimacy and maybe make it seem as if Kegan was being honest about his story, is that Derek German, Libby's father, is extremely something's bothering him about the time frame. So if this story's true, that means it's very possible that while they were doing this moving and staging, because he apparently showed up right at about 3:11, and if this story's true, that could explain and could be some inside information between law enforcement and himself, that, hey man, I hate to tell you this, but while you were here, searching and coming to pick up your daughter, just maybe 1,000 yards away, less than 1,000 yards away, or less than 1,000 feet away. This is going on, staging and all that weird stuff. So
And
that could
everybody else,
explain a lot when it comes to him.
everybody else, asked me since I released this information. I have a lot of people asking me, well, how did nobody see them? And my response to that is, well, how do you know that nobody saw them? Or how do you know that they didn't cross paths? And just, we cross paths with people all the time. And unless we're looking for something, we don't realize or even pay any attention to them, really.
Well, the answer is simple to me. The Ron Logan affidavit states clearly that there was no signs of a struggle. So that means that there's most likely multiple crime scenes. So down the hill, that's where they were attacked, I'm sure.
That's
just quickly.
Yeah, that's what thinks as well.
So I think that I think they were attacked very quickly there, and then he could have easily got up from that point and said, "Now what have I done? I need help, getting them over across the creek and hidden." Which was also very tall grass and within some trees. Easily you could miss them. But you can kind of see now like that they're trying to hide it when you think about covering with leaves and if what we heard about the crime scene is true, we know that they were viciously attacked. To me, that says rage, pure rage. That goes back to the smashing the stepson into the toilet story and all that information. We know that there's rage. Rage like that sometimes is that you can't control it. So if he went in rage mode, panicked, and then did a bunch of horrible things and then came back and recruited Kegan, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it sounds to me like this was initially probably a sexually motivated crime of some sort. I don't know how far that went, allegedly. He may have marched them down a hill, and one of DNR's theories is that he got them down the hill, committed or attempted to commit some sort of a sexual assault or control them once he got down the hill. And then, we were theorizing and talking about, well, how did they get on the other side of the creek then? And it was at that point he started talking about, he says, "Hey, did you know that the Kleins knew and were friends with Ron Logan?" And I've studied this case since 2020, in like February of 2020. And I've always wondered, did the Kleins know Logan? And DNR states very specifically to me that Kegan Kline told him, "Yeah, my dad was really good friends with Ron Logan." And that could be why he was so comfortable on his property, potentially. I don't know. There's so many questions I have too, as well, after speaking with this guy. It's wild.
Well, I guess we are getting an echo. Do you guys has the echo calmed down? I turned my output. I may have added up too loud and may have getting picked up through my microphone. Is that better?
I don't hear any echo now, personally.
Okay, but you did as well?
I did before, but I don't now.
Okay. All right. So I turned it down. I can hear you fine. It's just, I think I just had it up too loud. So yeah, I mean, these questions, what was going on with that disgusting photo that he drew? I mean, is that really going on in the jail?
The picture, you mean, that he drew of Kegan?
No, who's the girl?
Oh, the girl. According to DNR, that's his fiance. And
Holly or something?
Yeah, I guess he told me that her name is, and this is the information he gave me, that her name is Holly, and I don't want to out her in case that's her real name, but that's what he told me. And supposedly she was from Fort Wayne, Indiana. But what's really interesting about that is DNR told me there was chatter among the prisoners. Well, the prison. There's a lot of people who are saying, "Oh, don't call it prison," but whatever, semantics. That Holly, the prisoners were skeptical that Holly was a plant, that somebody that was sent in there by the authorities to try and gain information from him, and that she really wasn't interested in him. I don't know whether or not that's total BS or just speculation, but he told me that that's what some of the chatter and the talk among the prisoners was.
Well, I think there's somebody online. I think this Holly person actually has a YouTube channel, and she claims to be his girlfriend.
Yeah, he referred to her as her fiance.
Yeah, wife Lilith, I think is the person's name. But I guess my question is she really able to get on the screen like that and show herself like that?
Well, what's crazy to me is that's what I asked them too. I said I thought they weren't supposed to have devices, this, that, and the other thing. And he said that Kegan was being provided with what they call chirping devices, and that you can
Special privileges.
correct, and that they put
Oh man.
on there, and that he was and it sounds like what the murder sheet had reported was true, that he was trying to solicit
Hmm.
sexual things while he was on these devices from people, and just real kind of perverted stuff. And he told me that the guy's got basically like a sexual addiction, and
God, that's horrible. It makes me sick to see that.
it makes me sick to see that too, that they're allowing that. And that was
Yeah.
the basis of, I guess, this drawing of Kegan and of her, is that he's in jail with these chirping devices and things like that, and allowed to communicate. And I guess people put money there, and then they also go in, and he said every week Kegan's commissary would be full. They have like $100 limit, I guess, and every Tuesday the prisoners were kind of resentful of Kegan because some of the prisoners had nothing, and Kegan would just come in with bags full of like chips, soda, candy, things that he got from the commissary that people are providing him. And I don't know who's providing him these things, but he's basically kind of living the life in there before he was, I guess, supposedly separated from them recently or isolated.
Well, I see sarcasm in that. It's like maybe even a little bit of animosity. Like, oh, I'm on TV again. Look, I get all these privileges. My girlfriend shows up. Shows her boobs on this little screen. I get all the commissary, like the chips in the hand. Those that represents commissary, and then the special privileges. Are the female on the screen. Like, so it better be worth it. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, because boy, I can, number one, see how that would create a lot of resentment against other, or from other people who are in jail there. And I just, I can't believe that after all this time that he's allowed to do this sort of stuff. I have, and again, I think I covered this in the one of my 3 videos, but apparently, according to DNR, the authorities and the FBI have been trying to get Kegan to flip on his dad in exchange for some form of immunity in the Delphi case. Like, basically say, hey, we think we're both there. We think your dad did it. Turn on your dad and we'll give you immunity from the Delphi case. And that's just what he said that Kegan told him. And I guess he said that Kegan is also extremely stressed out because I guess Kegan told him that they were trying to tell him they were going to make the CSAM case a federal case, supposedly, which he said scared the living crap out of Kegan because he thought that it might be a stiffer punishment or some other sort of thing. And that DNR was trying to assure him that actually federal prison is a nicer place to stay than state prison. So it was a pretty wild conversation I had with DNR. I mean, he provided me a lot of detail about a lot of things.
I mean, it fits.
Yeah,
But very closely, I mean, it would have to be like, we're talking like a time crunch, and it could involve other people as well.
well, that's the thing. We don't know, and I repeatedly say that we don't know what investigators know. And all I can hope, and again, that I've sent this information to the authorities also with his permission, with DNR's permission. And I asked him, I said, why didn't you go straight to the police? And he said, look, man, he goes, I was in for a low-level drug possession charge. And he said, would you want to go and run and talk to the cops when you were just in prison and they're busting your balls, forgive my language, for having Kegan Kline's, ID bracelet in exchange for some photographs? And they punished him over this and reprimanded him, as you saw in the documents that I had. And, he said, I have nothing to gain. He goes, if I was serving, like 5 years or 10 years and it might get my sentence reduced, he goes, I might go and run to them. He goes, but if I'm only in there for a couple of months, then let out on probation, he goes, what reason would I have to go and run and tell the cops? He goes, then people in there would probably view me as a snitch and, things like that. And he told me that at some point he was like he's in his early 50s, and he told me he was an ESL, like English as a second language, kind of assisting some Indiana school districts with translating for kids whose first language wasn't primarily English. And in his part, he was also a soccer coach. And he said that he'd always known about the case, but he never really dove into it until he ended up getting transferred from the Wabash County because he said Wabash County was like overcrowded. So that's why they moved him to Miami County. And he said when he saw, the photographs of Libby and stuff online, I guess she was wearing a soccer jersey in one of the photographs. And he said, being a former soccer coach, and he said, he goes, I have nieces and things. He goes, it just kind of hit me. Man, these are two kids. He said when he got out of jail, the last couple of days, he goes, it's just been weighing on his mind. What if these were my kids? And kind of feeling guilty about all the information that Kegan told him that was just, you could tell it was weighing on him, that he wanted to talk to somebody about this. And I just kind of let myself be that outlet for him to share this story with.
Well, unfortunately, what I think he was getting was, I think he was getting the after Kegan, the I just confessed Kegan. So all this information that came out, the leak apparently that was mentioned by the murder sheet, the search of the Wabash River, Kegan beginning to chirp all these people, right people. He's got a fiance that's visiting him in prison. All this stuff coincides within like a real small time frame. Mm-hmm. So it's probably at that point where Kegan went to police and said, okay, I know you guys have information that'll lead to this, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you my part, but we're going to make a deal first. And once he made that deal, he just went around the whole jail, like talking about it now, like I don't have to hide it. I've already told law enforcement. So yeah, you're my friend. Now I can just tell you, because it's law enforcement already knows.
Well, DNR told me specifically that Kegan told him, hey, my dad did this. Then he recruited me to help him clean up. He goes, and he said, and this is an exact quote, he said, referring to the FBI and the police, he goes, but it's their job to prove it, not mine. So
yeah, and he's kind of taken that approach from the beginning. He said, oh, I didn't create the Anthony Shots profile. Boom, they put the proof on the table, and he said, yeah, I created it, to meet girls and solicit nude photos from underage girls. Yeah, I did that because they showed him the proof. And he also mentions that in his interview transcript. He's like, well, yeah, you guys laid out the proof, so I admitted to it. So he's saying, I'm not going to tell you guys anything. You need to show me the proof first, and then I'll start talking. So they must have done that.
Yeah, I think that they've got more information from him since the beginning and put a lot of pressure on him to get information and little bits and pieces. And the one thing that I really want to reiterate or make clear to people, we can argue all day long about this, that, and the other thing. But if all this information is true, what Kegan has done, and there's no debating this, if he's telling the truth, he has put himself and his father at the Monon High Bridge and at the crime scene that day. Now, we can argue semantics. Is he just throwing his dad under the bus? Was it really Kegan? Was Ron Logan involved? That's not the side. But by saying the things that he's allegedly said, that puts him and his father at the crime scene that day.
Yeah, it's typical behavior for somebody guilty of especially these types of crimes, to only tell like a side of the story where they're kind of better off, or they're leaning more towards innocent, But really, this could be him lying. But like you said, it doesn't matter what at the end of the day, the scenario equals him putting himself at the bridge, whether it has any of these other people, like you said, are involved. He has put himself there. So if he's the one guy that's at the bridge committing these murders, he's already screwed himself at that point.
Exactly. And yes. I think he realizes that, and that may be why he's trying to, push all the pressure onto his dad too, to try and keep from being in prison for the rest of his life. And one of the things I told DNR, I says, I don't know if you plan on ever having contact with him or anybody else again. I said, but if you do, I said, I would strongly suggest that you recommend to him, hey, they already have you at the crime scene by your own admission. You're claiming your dad did it. If you ever want to see the light of day again, maybe you'll get out on the CSAM charges. And if they do offer you immunity, I tell him that he would be an absolute fool not to take it.
Yeah. And negotiate. Law enforcement's not just going to come out and be like, okay, we're going to give you time served and 20 years of probation and, all of these privileges revoked for, pretty much the rest of your life. They're not going to just come out and do that. They're going to slowly be like, oh, well, we'll reduce your sentence by 10 years or 5 years. And then they'll go back, he'll talk to his lawyer, and his lawyer's going to say, nope, we'll continue negotiating. And then once they make that deal, that's when we're going to see the court documents that we saw about a month ago, where it stated negotiating. And I think he went into ISP custody, and he's still in their custody. It doesn't matter what jail he's at. As of right now, legally, he's still in ISP custody. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, and interesting, one of the things that he stated to me, there was a lot of speculation about why they took him out of custody. Did it revolve around the bridge search? And I can't speak to that, but what I can say is what Kegan told him he was taken into custody for. And this kind of caught me off guard because he alleges, and he says that DNR says Kegan told him that when he was taken into custody, that it was actually for, quote, medical reasons. So he's basically alleging, or Kegan could just be saying that to cover his butt about what's really going on or what they were really doing that day. But that's what he told DNR, is that he was taken into custody for some sort of medical reason or for a health reason or to have some, could be a procedure, could be a medical, who knows? But that's what he told.
Yeah, I've heard in the past, and this has been proven in a lot of cases, that sometimes deals are made where they're allowed to go out and they sit them down at a nice restaurant, maybe secretly have a meet up with a woman. Like in a lot of these serial killer cases, sometimes stuff like that happened. I know that Ted Bundy was able to sneak behind a building and impregnate a woman.
I can actually confirm that, and again, this is just DNR's version of the story. He told me, and he says, I've seen. He told me, he said, The Unsolved. I've seen the paperwork that's sitting in Kegan's cell. He's got all his paperwork with him in the cell, et cetera, et cetera. And he says that he has been offered by the feds, basically, and I couldn't believe this. It made me sick to my stomach if it's true, that he's been offered to have basically like a bottle of champagne, a hotel room, a night with his, fiance, if he, turns and cops on his dad.
Hey, I don't have a problem with that if it delivers.
Correct.
I don't want you giving him the shit until you have the evidence, you know what I mean? But I'm concerned with the justice. These girls, they need to, they're not able to rest. That town, the county, at this point, pretty much, there's so many people involved in this across the world. Nobody can rest, so they better not be bribing him. If anything's going to mess with this case, it would be something like that.
That's
so they better
cringe.
Go ahead.
That's why it kind of made me cringe when he told me that that's what he told him. And could it just be Kegan posturing and bull crapping to make him sound like he's some big shot? Sure, but that's what was really relayed to me by DNR.
Yeah, give it to him. If he's going to hand you this case on a silver platter and you guys have everything you need already prior to that, you just need him to provide proof. Because if somehow Kegan can give them some type of physical evidence that doesn't include his testimony, I mean, they must know where maybe the trophies are. Maybe he's provided that information.
Well, I asked DNR. I said, what do you make of the search of the Wabash River? Did he talk to you about any of that? And he goes, no, he didn't. But he said that his theory is, and he believes personally, and this is just his opinion, that they're looking for a murder weapon. So wow. I don't know if that's the case, but obviously we've seen how long that search lasted. So,
over 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And the only time they spoke up ever officially was when it was done, when it was concluded.
Yeah. It's just mind-blowing, all the twists and turns in this case. And everybody keeps saying, oh, well, law enforcement has bungled this case. They've done this, they've done that. And I want to remind people, we need to be more respectful of law enforcement. They're the ones out there with their boots on the ground, not going home to their families, having sleepless nights and having to be neck deep in all this. And Doug Carter has repeatedly said, as we know, they're one piece of the puzzle away. And, I genuinely believe him. And I don't know what that one is.
It's the driver, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like the pictures and the pieces of the puzzle are all coming together. And I really do believe that they are that close. I don't know what it's going to take for them to feel confident in being able to get a conviction, but that's for them to determine and not me, unfortunately.
And there are rumors of something for September, but you can't pay too much attention into that kind of stuff. But it's a good thing to think about if they are trying to put together some type of grand jury.
Yeah, we'll see. We can only cross our fingers and hope. And let's hope they have some smoking gun evidence that we don't know about, and that they've got him in a corner, or him and his dad, or if anybody else was involved too. I mean, we just don't know. All we can do is trust that the information we get is correct, and that Kegan's not just completely making this up. But based on all the things we know so far, it seems like there's an awful lot of truth to these things. Because again, why would you just put yourself at the crime scene willingly and tell people that? And DNR has told me that he told a couple of other people in the jail the same thing, and that hey, the feds have kind of offered me this deal, blah blah blah. My dad was the one who did it, and he just keeps repeatedly hammering home, well, I was there, but my dad was the one that did it. And what kind of made hair stand up on the back of my neck, I said, okay, well, what happened after, what did he tell you what happened after Tony allegedly did this and got back to the Jeep? And he said, this is an exact quote I wrote down on my marker. He said, Kegan told him, quote, that's when the really weird stuff started. And that he all of a sudden would seem real, like cringy about not wanting to talk anymore about it. Just like he said, he goes, you could see it in Kegan's eyes. He wanted to talk about it, or he wanted to get it off his chest, but he just kind of couldn't bring himself to, and just kept going back to, well, my dad did it, and my dad asked me to help, clean up afterwards, sort of thing. And
Well, he knows the currency that he has, or the leverage that he has, is within those secrets. Law enforcement told him, if you leak any of this information, you're basically ruining your own future, because your evidence means nothing, because now this private information that's between law enforcement, which is us, and you, potentially the murderer or person who helped, if you leak that information, it is now out of this specific circle, and we can no longer use that basically in the courtroom if it's spread around a jailhouse.
Sure. And, I really debated long and hard, because like I said, I've been a lot of people are attacking me on my page right now and saying, well, you're just a YouTuber, you're not a journalist. No, that's inaccurate. I started becoming a journalist in 1996. I wrote government stories, political stories, covered presidential elections for quite some time, probably until about 2010, 11, 12 or so, and just kind of transitioned into a different journalism career where I'm covering other things, sports related things instead, things that are a little less stressful. But I want to reiterate, I do have a background in this. I'm good at what I do, but at the same time, the information that I get from these sources, I can develop and cultivate sources like this. But at the same time, I can't obviously verify, what Kegan Kline is full of crap about and what he isn't. I'm just presenting this information to people. And I started thinking, well, if I were the family, of Abby and Libby, wouldn't I want to know this information? Wouldn't I want to know Kegan Kline is talking about this? I mean, these people have been desperate for some sort of insight for 5.5, 6 years now. And so if nothing else, I'm just relaying the information so that these families can know that this information is out there. This is what was said. This is what is being alleged by Klein, for maybe their own peace of mind or their own insight, because it sounds like law enforcement hasn't told them a whole heck of a lot since day one about what's going on in this investigation.
I agree. So hopefully they can not screw it up here on the final stretch, if that's what we're witnessing.
Yeah, and boy, I still can't believe it. And I asked him, I said, why would they do this in broad daylight, risking somebody seeing him? And DNR said, I know, right? He goes, but at the same time, he goes, you have to remember, he goes, and he started talking about Kegan's behavior. He goes, Kegan and his dad, he goes, they aren't exactly, Mensa scholars. They're not exactly bright as bulb. They're kind of fueled by their compulsions and their sexual urges and things like that. And he says he thinks that they were just kind of overwhelmed by those urges that day, and it got carried away and out of hand. And if that's the motive and it's that simple, that's absolutely disgusting and sad that somebody would, as Carter put it, how could you do this to two little girls? Only a coward would do that.
You know what makes me wonder, this isn't an accusation because he could be a good man, but I know his dad recently passed away. But I wonder if something similar like this happened with Tony and his father when they were young. I wonder if it was like some type of rite of passage or something, maybe like, here, come with me. I'm going to show you like what kind of a monster, you will soon become.
Right. And the regular rest of society can't possibly imagine doing something like that with their father or sharing an account where there's illegal activity like that going on. And that's one of the things I talked to DNR about too. I said, can you imagine doing something like that with your dad? I said, and he told me, he's like, he goes, I think it was all fun and games to them at first. He goes, but then his dad kind of crossed that line. And he says, you could tell, he goes, Kegan, it's almost like he has remorse in his eyes when he talks about it. Like he almost even he couldn't believe his dad crossed that line.
Oh, and also this brings me back. Bossy made a comment earlier, and I meant to say something about it, but she was saying Kegan may not be getting as much time or getting such a great deal because you heard law enforcement say, or when they were interviewing him, and it's in the interview transcript, that they know somebody else was using these devices. We know it's not just you. So at this point, they could be taking some of those charges and take, if that's the case, then they need to take some of those charges off. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And put them somewhere else where they belong. So that could, if they're taking away some of those charges, maybe automatically without even making a deal, he's going to receive less of a sentence.
Maybe. And, I don't know what his defense attorney, who I believe is a public defender, I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe that's something that they're, trying to do as well as basically say, well, hey, prove that this was, you and not Tony doing this. And who knows, man? We only law enforcement knows what they found in their forensic evidence discovery, etc.
Human and scientific.
Yeah,
is what they stated on record.
So I don't know if anybody else has any other questions about it. I basically have covered the shell and the outline of everything that he talked to me for 3 hours about last night, and it's just,
yeah. Let's close out. Let's close out with that. We'll go directly to the chat, and then if anybody wants to call you out or question you, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with what you did. You're just reporting. Like you said, and regardless if you're a seasoned journalist, I mean, we have the First Amendment right, which basically makes us as Americans journalists by right. But you being seasoned should give you a little more credibility than somebody like me, So I will definitely agree to that for sure. But yeah, let's go to the chat. And I appreciate you hanging out here with us and being willing to explain that. I didn't know that you were getting any flack for this, so I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, unfortunately, and again, there's people attacking me, well, you're making money off of this, that. My channel is eligible to be monetized. I have not made it monetized at all. I'm not making a cent off of this. I happen to be a parent myself. I'm disgusted by people who allege such things. And rest assured, when I started this channel, number one, I never thought that it would get this much of a following, because right now I don't have editing equipment here. I just was filming things with a GoPro that I have and sharing information with people in kind of like a podcast style. But now that it has,
well, that's what I like, though. That's the part that I like. I like that you're like, okay, no bells and whistles. This is just information, and it works for me. So
yeah, I'm in it for the right reasons, definitely. Unlike some people out there, unfortunately. So again,
you're getting a lot of thank yous. I know early on, I didn't hear anybody. There was a couple strange questions. I think one was, why didn't you turn it in right away? Well, I'm sure you have by now.
I did turn it in immediately. I did that. In fact, I did this before I even spoke with him on the phone last night, because at first he was very hesitant to speak with me on the phone at all. And I thought it was just kind of total BS. So that's the first thing I did is I went to the tip line. I called up the Carroll County Sheriff's Department and left a message with them, and, gave them the information about what he was stating on my page. And he ended up contacting me on a Facebook account that I have, and I was careful to protect myself as well.
For sure.
And spoke with him, and I don't want to say where, or, you know, I won't even say, I'll just say it's in the state of Indiana, and he's out of prison and he's staying in a hotel. And I contacted him at the hotel and started speaking him through the phone there. And again, we had a 3-hour conversation. He started sending me, you know, the photos of his artwork, paperwork, you know, from the jailhouse to prove he was who he said. I cross-referenced that with the, you know, online case information that he gave me, you know, claiming this is who he was, this is what he was in for, and it all just completely matched 100%. So at that point, I knew I was dealing with somebody who was telling me the truth.
And you put some documents on your, and anybody who needs the details to what we're talking about, go to the Unsolved channel. The link is in the description. You put all those documents right out there so that we can see them. So.
Yeah, and I see somebody up here, they're saying it sounds like, you know, Kegan Kline is lying, you know, not a reliable source, blah, blah, blah. You know, again, I'm not alleging that everything Kegan Kline is saying is the gospel. And a lot of people need to understand that. Just because I'm sharing this information, it doesn't mean that I believe Kegan Kline. It just means that I have a source who was incarcerated with him, that I can confirm was incarcerated with him and involved in great detail, sharing things with him and proving it to me that, you know, this is what Kegan told him. And this person isn't making any money off of this either. They have nothing to gain from that. They're trying to basically, you know, keep their identity somewhat concealed.
What it sounds like to me is that they're kind of like trying to stick it back to the prison. Like, you guys wanted us to be so hush hush with this. You should have treated me better. And now I'm not going to be so hush hush.
Yeah. And this person also told me that, you know, one of the reasons that they just wanted to get it off their chest and be done with it is that, you know, he's in recovery. He made a mistake. He's on parole now. He's trying to go out into the world again and hold a job and not relapse into things. He acknowledges that he, you know, used to be part of the educational system and ruined his life with some of his decisions. But that, you know, DNR says that he wants to be able to sleep at the end of the night and clear his conscience, and that he had to talk to somebody about it. So I told him too, when I was trying to be empathetic with him, that, hey man, I can't even imagine what it must have been like to be in there and have all this stuff laid on you when you weren't even expecting it in the first place. That would bother me as well. That can't be easy for him to deal with. And if you're somebody like him in recovery, I can only imagine that having that weighing on your mind could cause you a lot of stress and leave you prone to potential relapse. So I really tried to empathize with him when I talked to him about his situation as well.
Yeah, because you mentioned he kind of gave you a little bit of his background, and he was already familiar with the story.
Yeah, and it feels like he's just kind of disappointed with himself that he took some of the paths he took and some of the life choices that he'd made. You know, when it seemed like at one point in his life he was somebody who was genuinely caring and around kids and gave a crap about people, and it sounds like he just made one bad decision recently that kind of messed part of his life up. And it just, you know, that's the path some people go down. A lot of people have been under a lot of stress during this pandemic, and it just goes to show you, you make one wrong choice in this world and it can haunt you for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, it really can.
So again, I don't know if anybody else has any other questions or anything, but before I go, I can try and answer a few of them. But the information I have is just limited to what he told me yesterday and to all the notes I have and the 3-hour phone conversation I had. So.
Yeah, what it sounds like is Kegan's like, yeah, I was there. I was a passenger. I was in a red Jeep, but I'm not going to tell you who was driving, and I'm not going to tell you who I was there with. Type of situation.
Yeah, to answer Moon Crystal, no, he didn't say anything to him, to my knowledge, that about any prior crimes or anything that took place before this. The conversation I had with DNR was specifically about this Delphi crime. There was no mention of any prior crimes that he made me aware of.
Thanks, Glenn, for the super sticker and all your support for the channel. Thank you so much. Some more thank yous.
And to everybody out there watching, I do appreciate the thank yous. Again, this was very stressful for me to have this all thrown on me just all of a sudden with no notice. And again, I'm just sharing what I was told. And I'm praying that maybe some of this detail, maybe the ISP or FBI will be in contact with this individual, and maybe they will get some sort of useful information from him that helps put their case together. Even if it's, not the final nail in the coffin, maybe it's one of the nails that they do need. Just
Yeah,
having,
piece by piece.
yeah. So I don't know. It's pretty crazy. It really, really is that this case has taken so many of these twists and turns. And, a lot of people get mad too when they say, well, how in the heck has law enforcement not solved this crime yet? Keep in mind, we have absolutely no idea what they have for evidence. They may have a ton of evidence, but that there's something that's keeping them from taking this to a grand jury so far. And
Well, it's all like a big riddle, and they're the only ones that really have the answer. Them and the killers,
answer true crime housewife. It sounds like, based on what DNR thinks, the possible motive for the crime was just kind of their sexual deviancy, and that it just got out of control that day.
Well, I got the impression from everything that I've heard and looked into about Tony Klein that I think there's some point where Kegan makes mention of Tony Klein sleeping with like one of his friends when she was like 16, 17. So he may be one of these people who, as they grow, their mind is still like as a teenager. You know what I mean? So he might have this fantasy where he really thought he could go to the bridge and be like, I fooled you, but hey, here I am. I'm still this really cool hip guy, let's hang out. And they're like, hell no.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that, because it kind of triggered something that he talked to me about in his mind. He said basically that's kind of what Kegan is in his mind. He said he's very effeminate actually in prison. Like, he's always making jokes and kind of, I don't want to be disgusting or graphic. He told me Kegan would like walk around and kind of like pinch his nipples and kind of act like feminine toward other people in there. And there's speculation in the prison that he has something going on with another guy in there, because
wow.
Just wild stuff because of his sexual compulsions and stuff.
Well, there's a little bit of that in the transcripts too. A little bit of talk like that in profiles that say that they want homosexual slaves. So there's a little bit that kind of points to that.
But to my bigger point, what DNR was saying is that Kegan, here's how he tries to justify the CSAM stuff. He tells me that Kegan told him that when he was doing these things, remember it was, like 2016, 2017. So that's a while ago. And that Kegan was like 18 or 19 years old at the time, or 20 years old. And that some of these girls, and again, this is not me justifying this at all. This is what Kegan told him, that Kegan would try and justify it in his own mind by telling DNR and other people, well, these girls were like 15, 16, so I was only 3-4 years older than them. And so that's how he would try and justify his behavior in his own twisted mind, was that there wasn't that much of an age difference, which is disturbing, obviously.
Well, I mean, it even goes beyond that. There was like stuff with, I guess, children that were like under 6 and 3 years old, between the ages of 3 and 6. So if that's the stuff that Tony was doing, whoever was doing that, they can't get a slap on the wrist no matter what happens.
Well, I'm kind of shocked,
because those are victims too, you know what I mean?
I'm kind of shocked that they had to have had a bunch of this evidence early on. I don't understand why Kegan wasn't arrested immediately and incarcerated for some of these things, and B, at this point, if any of these things are true, why Tony isn't also on similar charges already. It's crazy. I mean, I know that sometimes law enforcement will try and use people as sources or to get information and keep them out of jail for a while. But at this point in the investigation, if they have information that Tony was accessing these devices allegedly and doing similar things, like, why isn't he in jail for CSAM also? It's nuts. Because I guess Kegan has all kinds of discovery photos in the files, DNR told me, that shows pictures of the raid of their house, all these other things. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So law enforcement, they've known about all this stuff for a long time. So, trying to figure out why Tony isn't already incarcerated for some of these allegations too, kind of is something I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around currently as well.
Well, maybe they're still kind of doing something similar to when they first did the raid, and then they didn't arrest anybody for a while. Maybe there's something they'll explain to us later why they did that and why they're doing it now.
I certainly hope so, because it's something I think they should have to explain to the people who pay their salaries. If this level of things are going on, and these people or any of them are still allowed to walk free at all for any length of time, it's disturbing. It really is
strange. And if anything is going to cost somebody, well, I'm going to say the type of repeat offenders are sexual offenders.
Yeah, and boy, I hope that I hope that these two haven't engaged in any of these crimes previously, but boy, the fact they were so comfortable going out there in broad daylight, it makes me wonder, what else they engaged in throughout their lives that we don't know about, or who else they may have victimized, which is probably why, they reached out and asked people to go ahead and give them information about, hey, did you communicate with the Anthony Shots profile? They were probably trying to prove Kegan's version of the story, that Tony Klein was in fact using that profile as well, or maybe met up with some of them.
Glenn has a question for you, Unsolved, here.
Sure. Did he say anything about if the bridge was a plea plan? No, not specifically. He just said that was where they agreed to meet up. And, I don't know why. I don't know who picked that location. I don't know if Tony or Kegan picked that location allegedly, or if it was the girls. I think a lot of this, may have been impulsive once they got out there. And like DNR said, his urge just kind of got the best of him, and it got carried away. He may have gone and committed some sort of act, or attempted to commit a sexually based crime, and all of a sudden thinks, oh crap, I crossed this line. The adrenaline calms down a little bit. The reality of what he's doing kind of dawns on him. And, oh my gosh, I've got two witnesses. And, who knows? Maybe they rejected him, and maybe the rejection triggered something in his mind, and hence the brutality of the crime. Maybe they insult.
That's what I'm thinking.
I don't know.
Well, I spoke to a guy who was questioned for being at the bridge. He didn't want to speak up about it, but he got questioned about it, and I asked him, what were the types of questions that they were asking you? And he said that they said, oh, what were you out there taking pictures, and the girls made fun of you and you snapped? That was a question they asked him.
Sure. Yeah, because obviously the police, whatever happened, they saw the brutality of the crime too, as evidenced by the affidavits. Somebody asked me, did he tell DNR who BG was? I don't know if that person's just joining the chat, but he's alleging that bridge guy is Tony. DNR is. He's alleging that's what he told him. Again, not my words. Those are allegedly Kegan's words to this source, DNR, who he was incarcerated with. So again, it's not for me to decide whether Kegan's just BSing to cover his own ass, or if, they both were doing that. This is what Kegan has told DNR while they were incarcerated together.
Yeah, he could have went out there and tried to blackmail the girls, like, hey, I catfished you, but guess what? I have all these photos, and if you don't do what I say, I'm going to release them.
Here's what he tells me he thinks happened. This is what he thinks happened. He says he thinks once Tony, or bridge guy, again, this is the allegation by him, not me, got out to the bridge, that he walked across the bridge or whatever, kind of cornered these girls and said to him, hey, are you looking for Anthony Shots? And basically portrayed himself as somebody who knew Anthony Shots and was going to introduce them to him, or something, disturbing like that. And in a sick sort of way, trying to initially test the waters and gain their trust by
a ruse.
Yeah, and just saying, hey, are you guys here to meet Anthony Shots? He's out by the car. Come with me, or down the hill. And for all we know, the car could have been down at the path below. I mean, we don't know.
Well, some of the people that are very close to this case from the beginning say that the neighbors over there at the south end of the bridge actually witnessed a person at about 1:30 lingering, and they actually had a short altercation with this person. This is if that's true, to me, it sounds like an ambush. So if they show up if they show up at 12 and they know the girls are going to be there around 1:30, and the guy's already in position at 1:30, Kegan's waiting in the vehicle. They have one person laying in wait, maybe even down the hill. And then as soon as, they get the Snapchat photo, here comes Tony following behind.
Yeah.
And because
let me assure you, like these are all scenarios that me and DNR discussed last night in great detail, trying to put two and two together in our head. Because I want from it to be the approach, okay, if everything he's saying is true, let's try and piece together what happened after that. And honestly, because I kept saying, well, he's not going to drag a 200-pound body, 100 yards or across the creek. It doesn't make much sense to me. So was it an ambush? Was Kegan down there waiting? I don't know, man. There may be more going on here than we realize. And
well, they found the shoe down there.
Correct.
So I'm thinking multiple crime scenes, no sign of a struggle at all. So I'm thinking once they got down the hill,
it could be.
I'm thinking that's where the killer said, "Hey, look, you don't ever talk to me like that again. When I give you money for photos, you're going to do what I tell you. When I told you not to bring, I told you to come alone. You did this to your friend. You know what I mean? Like you did this, like somebody like in some kind of weird rage, like because Erskine texts say, hey, this guy knew what he was doing with Abby. So to me, that's like, look, you did this. Now that she's out of the way, I have some time with you because I'm really mad at you specifically."
Sure. I don't want to get too far off on a tangent here. There's also been some things that I've made in videos to where I kind of question some of the things about the Erskine text, because I know if they're real, one of the things he stated was that there was no rape, no et cetera, et cetera. And I've always wondered, well, how would he know that from just looking at the crime scene? He wouldn't. So I try to be a little bit objective and skeptical and kind of use critical thinking to
well, then you got to put in the human element. So he could have known that there was and just said the opposite, kind of like law enforcement. It's like, you guys got to keep these details, under wraps. Don't go around talking about these details. Anybody that was there to make the discovery, like, hey, don't speak about this, DNRs or whatever. So he just simply stated the opposite, maybe.
Yeah, who knows? And like I said, we could go down these rabbit holes and tangents long, and it's not going to solve anything. But it is interesting to, based on what we've been told is allegedly the truth by DNR. It is interesting to piece together the possible scenarios if this is in fact accurate information.
It seems to be narrowing, right? Like all the information seems to be, the tunnel that it's traveling or the flow seems to be getting very narrow.
Yeah, a lot of the outside noise seems to kind of be getting batted away, and we're kind of getting a picture, I think, of what may have actually went on that day, regardless of the semantics or regardless if there's two people involved or whether or not Logan knew that they were on his property that day because they were friends. I mean, there's a lot of speculation going on my page about that too, about people saying BS, Logan was the guy that did it, blah, blah, blah. Again, I'm not getting into that right now. I'm not. My retort to people who claim that it's still Ron Logan is, look, granted, the video we have of Bridge Guy wasn't the best video in the world, but even DNR said, he goes, you could see kind of some of the, it looks like almost like a little goatee or facial hair or something on Bridge Guy's face, but they could be shadows too. We agreed. I said, but the one thing that we did agree on, I said, if you've ever seen video of Ron Logan the day after the crime, when the news channels are interviewing him, Logan has that humongous white bushy mustache. And even though the sun is at an angle, it's starting to go in the sky in the west that day a little bit on an angle, we see things that are white reflecting off of Bridge Guy's body, and they're shining kind of in the sun. And if that was Logan with that giant mustache, I think we would have seen that mustache even with a grainy shining in that video, number one. And number two, the other thing DNR told me is, well, people have said that it's Kegan Kline that did this. The reason he believes that Kegan didn't do this, he goes, despite what you may think, he goes, Kegan isn't very tall at all. He goes, he's a real short person. And he goes, I don't think a lot of people realize that. He goes, I was incarcerated with him. And DNR said he realizes that, Tony is definitely a little bit taller, a little bit, bigger than Kegan as far as height and things like that. And that Kegan doesn't match the actual physical height in the video of Bridge Guy, which I found interesting as well.
Well, let's take two more of these questions, and then we'll start closing her out here.
Yeah, Vanessa, he didn't say where it was, whether it was the CPS building. He did not share that information with DNR, unfortunately, because if he had, who knows how valuable that information could have been. So
I don't know what's Holly Southern Styles asking, had you heard anything about a pig roast clowns? I'm not quite sure what that's all about.
yeah, me either.
Let's see if there's any more here.
And if I missed anybody's questions, I apologize, because I'm kind of looking down at my notes a lot more than I'm looking up at the screen at the questions. But I'm trying to peek up here every so often.
And if you're catching a replay, I'm sure the Unsolved might check in and out on maybe some follow-up questions. I don't know if you're willing to do that here in the comment section.
And again, I can't guarantee it's anything I'm going to be able to provide information about. I will also add that DNR has stated that he is actually open to continuing a dialogue with me, but I want to be careful about that. And I also want to give, ISP or FBI or anybody who may want to talk to him. They haven't reached out to me yet, but if they do, he said that he is comfortable with me putting the authorities in contact with him where he's at that hotel in Indiana. But he didn't want to just openly give me his phone number other than to the hotel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that he's open to continuing a dialogue with me. So
that's good.
I left some sort of a good impression with him, fortunately.
Okay, last question. Any details about the staging?
No, the only details that I was given was that allegedly DNR was told by Kegan that his dad returned to the vehicle and then later on had him help clean up the crime scene and allegedly, pose the girls or stage the crime scene type of thing. And I don't know, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what Kegan alleged to DNR, that he helped him kind of after the crime. But that just could be him trying to minimalize. I don't know his, involvement. That's just what I was told. I hope that answers the question.
Wow. That's crazy, dude. He must be a father. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Derek Farmer, for the kind comment up there. I know that Sleuth probably wants to go back to his podcast and discuss.
No, the podcast is over. That I was going to cover all of that. Everything that we talked about, that's what I wanted to cover. I wanted to take your information and kind of see how it fits into the timeline from when the girls were dropped off and then when the crime scene was created. I want to know. I kind of wanted to fit it all together. So we did that. I accomplished everything I wanted to. So thank you.
You're welcome. And again, I just want to remind people that I'm not personally making any allegations. I'm very careful in my videos to state that this is information from this source. Like I said, I've done this professionally for a long time. So this isn't just some made up information just on a whim. This is legitimate information that was given to me, but by somebody that was incarcerated with him. I'm not personally accusing Tony Klein, Kegan Kline, Ron Logan, or anybody. I'm sharing this person's version of events. And again, if law enforcement would like to speak with this source, DNR, I am more than happy to put them in touch with him if they would like to talk with him. So thanks again, Sleuth.
All right. I really appreciate it. I really do. Hopefully we can do this again. And I look forward to seeing more videos on your channel.
Yeah, thanks, man. And, I need some time to kind of just let this all marinate too. Even when I woke up, I kind of had like half a headache from just kind of the adrenaline and excitement of last night of all this happening. And again, not excitement for like, oh gosh, a lot of people are going to view my page. No, just more excitement because, you may have information that nobody else has when you least expected to get it. It's kind of shocking to just have that kind of tossed at you. And another time on another one of your podcasts, I'll discuss another case when I was editing for patch.com where somebody else left a comment in, and I can prove this as well in the future, but I'm not going to do it right now, that helped lead to the resolution of a cold case that was 18 years old and finally brought somebody to justice based on information I forwarded from that site and comments that people left on a page in that case. So, this is not my first rodeo doing this. And it's crazy to me sometimes that people will talk to complete strangers before they'll talk to law enforcement, but psychologically I understand why it happens. And that's because a lot of people just kind of, trust a total stranger, as crazy as it sounds, more than speaking to the cops. Sometimes a lot of people are,
or they've done it before. I've come to the cops with the problems in the past or something and had a bad experience.
yeah. And in fact, when people on the page, when he was commenting on my page last night, said, well, why didn't you just go to law enforcement, DNR? Or why didn't you just, tell somebody? He got mad originally. He's like, what the heck do you think I'm trying to do now? Almost like, hey, don't scare me away. Let me say what I've got to say in terms that I'm comfortable with. So,
and the part that I appreciate is like the information kind of fell in your lap, but the verifying of the source of the information is where you put forth the effort. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I was real nervous about the first video I posted, because I knew, and rightfully so, that people would be upset, like, well, you haven't vetted this person, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I made sure to frame the information in the context that, hey, this was just put on my page. I want to let everybody know. I want to get the information out there to people, out to law enforcement. And then from that point on, once he started engaging in a dialogue with me, I was really worried that I was going to scare him away, or because initially he seemed very kind of skittish, and because people were attacking him in the comments, and I'm like, you guys are going to, I was that kind of mad, actually. I'm like, you guys are going to scare this guy away.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah, exactly. But eventually, for whatever reason, again, he started talking to me on Facebook. And what he did originally is, instead of talking on the phone originally, I was texting him on Facebook, and he would leave voice messages or messages. I would ask a question, and then he would respond with his actual voice, which I still have. If, the FBI or, anybody wants, the audio of those things, and would tell me this information. So it's recorded on audio, some of it. The Facebook portion, or the initial contact, it was anyway. And so he, forgive me, my mind's all over the place here. He just, he would start communicating with me on Facebook. And once I started, instead of just grilling him with a million questions right away, one of the techniques I use when I'm speaking with somebody, instead of acting like a journalist, I will try and not necessarily befriend them, but build up a rapport with them, or talk about things I have in common with them, so that they feel comfortable talking with me in the first place. And if DNR is out there watching, which I think he might be, I would just like to thank him for having the courage to
I agree. Thank you, DNR.
And I also told him, I said, I don't want to sound like I'm being arrogant by saying this, but, you're lucky that you came and talked to me instead of some sensationalized page that's going to try and get a bunch of, clicks and views and this and that. And I know that this will become a very popular video that you have too. And a lot of people will have interest in it for good reason. But again, you're not in this for those reasons necessarily. I'm not in it for those reasons. We both want to see, as parents ourselves, this crime solved and this person or persons brought to justice as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah, I mean, for our own families. I mean, if this can happen to them, it could happen to us. So we need this to come to a close. We need justice for them, because that justice for them equals justice for us as well.
Certainly. And again, I want to also, before I go, just send a thank you and a shout out to all the law enforcement professionals that have been out there, working the streets, doing their best to try and bring this case to a resolution. You people are actually real heroes, and I'm so sorry for some of the flack that you guys take on some of these social media sites and other places. It's not a fun time to be a cop right now, but you guys are the best. When this comes to a resolution, you're going to be the ones who are responsible for bringing it to a resolution. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, law enforcement, for all you do for everybody. I know there's a few apples out there, but most of you are good people.
I say 1 out of 10, no matter what it is. 1 out of 10. All right, Unsolved. I appreciate it. I have so much more I could keep saying and saying, but I am out of time. If you want to stay in the chat here for about another 5 minutes and answer any lingering questions, please do so.
Yeah, maybe a few more, and then I'm going to go out and get some sun on my face.
All right. Thank you again.
You're welcome, sir.
Take care.
You too.
Wow. What an awesome surprise. I mean, I was going to cover information that was on his channel, and he was kind enough to join us. On that note, guys, we're going to hang out here probably another, I would say 5 or so minutes, just so that we can make sure that we're answering as many questions as possible in the chat, or at least getting an idea of what you guys are talking about. Because usually when we have a guest, a lot of those questions will just fly by. We're too busy engaging in dialogue. So we will start winding out. Thank you, Just Pam, for supporting my channel. The more support I get, the more time I can put into doing this. Respect to Unsolved. What's up, Carrie Ann? Good to see you. Yeah, I've been hearing more and more about that, Vanessa. But I think he's still here. What do you say to that, Unsolved? KK, TK, Ron Logan connection. Anything you heard? Hey, Rob. Thank you. Thank you, Kiwi. Yeah, thank you again, Unsolved. We appreciate you putting in the effort. Rest in peace, Abby and Libby. Justice, I think, is coming soon for you guys. And Delphi. And hopefully a much-needed win for Indiana. Thanks, Just Pam. Hey, baby bear. Thank you. Bless up. Thank you, Shay. Same to you. Unsolved says, thank you all for your support. And remember, this is about justice for 2 children, not me, not my ego, not anyone's ego. Link to his channel, Amy, you can find it in the description below. Just click that link and it'll bring you right there. Thank you, Vanessa. You got it, Nadia. Thanks, Moon Crystal. Thanks for participating in the chat. And Just Pam, thank you for the super chat. It said, great live, Sleuth, respect Unsolved. And another super sticker early on from Glenn. Yeah, medical reasons. Sounds like a cover-up. Maybe some technical, strange way it actually was that. All right, guys. We are going to start wrapping it up. I really appreciate everybody who participated in the chat. If you're watching the replay and want to leave a question for the Unsolved, and anybody who is, please do so here in the comment section. And anybody who's confused on the details, go check out his channel. Links in the description. He goes in all the information we covered basically came from somebody that he was speaking with. So if you want to go into detail, please check out those videos. And we're going to catch you guys on the next one.